just going out for a bit.
For how long?
I don't know, just a little while. I'll wait for you to come back for dinner.
That was the last time her mother ever heard her daughter's voice. Danika Jade Troy left the house that night, and she never came back. The case unfolded in Pace, Florida, a quiet suburban town, the kind found all across America, where lawns are neatly trimmed, where doors sometimes don't even need to be locked at night. People move here to feel safe, to escape the noise and the violence of big cities. But on the night of December 1st, 2025, that illusion of safety collapsed. Danika Jade Troy, 14 years old, a bright, lively girl, often seen riding her colorful electric scooter. That night, Danika walked her scooter out of the house, stepped into the darkness, and disappeared. That was the last time her mother saw her daughter alive. Who could hate a 14-year-old child that much? A predator lurking in the shadows, or a cold-blooded killer? The answer was more terrifying than anything you might imagine. The person who pulled the trigger was no stranger. They were her classmates. And the motive? It began with a single block button on social media. This is not just a personal tragedy. It is a piercing alarm bell about a generation growing up behind phone screens, where the boundary between digital emotion and real human life is slowly disappearing. Today, we will peel back every layer of the Danika Jade Troy case, from hate-filled messages inside private group chats to the chilling indifference of adults who witnessed the warning signs and did nothing. And finally, the haunting question: why were 14-year-olds incapable of such cruelty? But before we step into the darkness of the woods off Kimberly Road, we need to know who was robbed of her future. We need to remember Danika, not as a burned body in a forensic report, but as a real person, flesh and blood. A girl who should still be sitting in a classroom this morning, 1:50. 02:10. Danika Jade Troy. To her family and to neighbors in the town of Pace, she was the embodiment of joy. A 14-year-old girl, bright, outgoing, and full of energy. She wasn't the kind of kid who caused trouble. She had simple dreams, like so many teenagers. She liked getting ready, she liked making videos, and she cared deeply about the people around her. And if you lived in Pace, chances are you had seen her. The image most people remember is Danika gliding through town on her colorful electric scooter, hair moving in the wind, a wide, effortless smile. That scooter was her freedom. It carried her everywhere. But in a cruel twist, that very scooter would later become the most critical piece of evidence, exposing the depth of human cruelty to Jennifer Troy. Danika's mother, her daughter, was an open book. Their bond was built on absolute trust. Danika wasn't the kind of teenager who hid things or lived a secret rebellion. She always told her mother where she was going and who she would be with. And because of that trust, on that fateful Sunday night, when Danika said she wanted to step out, to meet friends for a bit, Jennifer Troy said yes. She never imagined that something so ordinary could be the perfect disguise for a deadly trap. But the world of a 14-year-old is far more complex than what adults see across the dinner table. Outside, beyond the safe walls of the Troy household, there were friends, wearing very different faces. Let's talk about the ones who waited in the darkness that night. Gabriel Williams, 16 years old, and Kimari Blevins, 14 years old. Two names that would later send a chill through the entire community of Pace. They were not career criminals with long records. They sat in the same classrooms as Danika, ate in the same cafeteria, breathed the same air. So, what turned classmates into cold-blooded killers? The motive in this case did not come from money. It did not come from romantic jealousy. It came from something so trivial, it's almost unbearable: ego on social media. Investigators later revealed that tension had grown between Danika and Gabriel's group, not through physical fights, but through a silent war in digital space. A single block cutting off an account, a few passive-aggressive comments, back-channel messages, talking behind her back, inside private Snapchat group chats. To adults, this is meaningless noise, but to teenagers in the middle of adolescence, with volatile emotions and limited self-control, online humiliation is treated as an unforgivable crime. Hatred was cultivated day after day, keystroke by keystroke. Gabriel and Kimari didn't stop at resentment. They wanted revenge. And in their immature but deeply distorted minds, the only way to end the discomfort was not to talk. It was to erase the other person permanently. December 1st, 2025. The sun set, bringing early winter cold over the town of Pace. It was a Sunday that should have ended quietly. Later that evening, Danika wheeled her beloved electric scooter out the front door, the soft hum of the motor coming to life. She turned back and said one simple line to her mother: "I'm meeting a friend for a bit. I'll be right back." Jennifer watched her go. No bad feeling, no sense of danger, no final goodbye. Just an ordinary night, like hundreds before it. She had no way of knowing that this was the last moment she would ever see her daughter's smile. The clock strikes, 10 o'clock p.m. Danika still hasn't come home. Jennifer begins watching the street, through the window. The road in front of the house, dark, empty. She picks up her phone, types a message. "Where are you? It's late." She presses send. The message vanishes into nothing. No scene indicator, no 3 dots signaling a reply. Just silence, cold, seeping into every corner of the house. 11 o'clock p.m., then midnight. Worry hardens into paralyzing fear. Jennifer starts calling every friend she can think of. "Is Danika with you? Have you seen her?" The answer is always no. That's when a brutal truth sets in. Danika didn't bring clothes to stay overnight. She didn't take cash. There was no plan to run away. Her well-behaved daughter, who never turned her phone off, had now disappeared completely from the map. Dawn breaks on Monday morning, December 2nd, but it brings no light to the Troy family, only desperation. The family immediately contacts police. A county-wide alert is issued across Santa Rosa County. Danika's face, bright eyes, and radiant smile quickly flood local news broadcasts and social media. Sheriff Bob Johnson mobilizes detectives without delay. 0540, 0620. The clock strikes 10:00 p.m. Danika still hasn't come home. Jennifer begins watching the street, through the window. The road in front of the house, dark, empty. She picks up her phone, types a message. "Where are you? It's late." She presses send. The message vanishes into nothing. No scene indicator, no 3 dots signaling a reply. Just silence, cold, seeping into every corner of the house. 11:00 p.m., then midnight. Worry hardens into paralyzing fear. Jennifer starts calling every friend she can think of. "Is Danika with you? Have you seen her?" The answer is always no. That's when a brutal truth sets in. Danika didn't bring clothes to stay overnight. She didn't take cash. There was no plan to run away. Her well-behaved daughter, who never turned her phone off, had now disappeared completely from the map. Dawn breaks on Monday morning, December 2nd, but it brings no light to the Troy family, only desperation. The family immediately contacts police. A county-wide alert is issued across Santa Rosa County. Danika's face, bright eyes, and radiant smile quickly flood local news broadcasts and social media. Sheriff Bob Johnson mobilizes detectives. Without delay, the clock strikes 10:00 p.m. Danika still hasn't come home. Jennifer begins watching the street through the window. The road in front of the house, dark, empty. She picks up her phone, types a message. "Where are you? It's late." She presses send. The message vanishes into nothing. No scene indicator, no 3 dots signaling a reply. Just silence, cold, seeping into every corner of the house. 11:00 p.m., then midnight. Worry hardens into paralyzing fear. Jennifer starts calling every friend she can think of. "Is Danika with you? Have you seen her?" The answer is always no. That's when a brutal truth sets in. Danika didn't bring clothes to stay overnight. She didn't take cash. There was no plan to run away. Her well-behaved daughter, who never turned her phone off, had now disappeared completely from the map. Dawn breaks on Monday morning, December 2nd, but it brings no light to the Troy family, only desperation. The family immediately contacts police. A county-wide alert is issued across Santa Rosa County. Danika's face, bright eyes, and radiant smile quickly flood local news broadcasts and social media. Sheriff Bob Johnson mobilizes detectives without delay. By Monday afternoon, a 911 call shattered the Troy family's agonizing wait. A local resident, passing through the sparse woodland near Kimberly Road, noticed something not right. A small fire already burned out, but the sharp smell of gasoline and the odor of something scorched still hung heavily in the air. Police moved quickly, sealing off the scene. And there, among the trees, they found every parent's worst nightmare: a small body, destroyed to the point of near unrecognizability. Later, forensic reports confirmed a chilling truth. Danika was not just killed, she was executed. 5 gunshots fired directly into a 14-year-old girl. And it didn't end there. The perpetrator, with a level of coldness far beyond their age, poured gasoline over her body and set it on fire. To erase fingerprints, to destroy DNA, to eliminate her identity. As investigators knelt to examine the scene, they noticed something critical was missing. The body was there. Spent 9mm shell casings littered the ground. But Danika's electric scooter, the one she never went anywhere without, was gone. That scooter could not simply vanish. Had the killer used it to escape, or taken it as a twisted trophy? Sheriff Bob Johnson knew finding the scooter meant finding the killer. And the lead came faster than expected. Just hours after the body was discovered, police received a tip about an electric scooter seen at the home of a man living nearby. His name, Mitchell Eugene Edens, 45 years old. A task force raided Edens' home, and there they found Danika's scooter. The town of Pace seemed ready to explode with anger. All eyes turned toward this middle-aged man, a 45-year-old who killed and burned a 14-year-old girl. But inside the interrogation room, the truth, Edens revealed, exposed a different and deeply disturbing side of human behavior. Ugly and cowardly in its own way. Edens did not kill Danika. He told investigators he happened to pass through the wooded area and saw her body already burning. But instead of calling 911, instead of trying to help, he noticed the electric scooter discarded nearby, and greed took over. He calmly walked it back to his home, treating it as something found, taken from the dead. Mitchell Edens was arrested for theft and tampering with evidence, but the real killer was still out there. The arrest of Mitchell Edens solved the mystery of the scooter, but sent investigators back to square one in the murder case. If Edens didn't pull the trigger, then who did? Sheriff Bob Johnson understood. The fire had destroyed fingerprints, but the killers had left behind something else, something Generation Z never fully erases. Digital footprints. Detectives with the Santa Rosa County Criminal Investigations Division began opening the black box of Danika's life, her Snapchat and Instagram accounts. When the data was recovered, a dark picture of Danika's final days came sharply into focus. There was no unknown stranger luring her away. Instead, there were rapid, persistent conversations from two familiar accounts. Gabriel Williams, 16 years old, and Kimari Blevins, 14. The messages were not casual check-ins. They were a carefully laid plan. They used text messages to lure Danika to a specific location that night. A trap, disguised as words that sounded like reconciliation. But the evidence was not limited to written words. It lived in the numbers. GPS location data from Gabriel's and Kimari's phones betrayed them. At the exact time Danika was killed, their phones were not at home. They were pinging inside the wooded area along Kimberly Road. They were there at the same time as the victim. And more importantly, they were there when the fire was set. Emergency search warrants were executed at the suspects' homes, and there, the final pieces of the crime were uncovered. Inside one of the residences, police recovered a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. Subsequent ballistic testing confirmed this was the weapon that ended Danika's life. But the detail that chilled investigators the most was not the gun. It was the receipts. Police found evidence that the two teens had stopped at a gas station just before the murder. They purchased a significant amount of gasoline. This proved the fire at the scene was not a spontaneous act to cover up a mistake. The burning of the body was part of the plan from the very beginning. Calculated cruelty, premeditated, carried out by children just 14 and 16 years old. December 5th, 2025. 3 days after Danika's body was found. Police moved in to make the arrests. There were no high-speed chases, no gunfire, only the cold sound of handcuffs locking around the wrists of two teenagers, Gabriel Williams, 16 years old, and Kimari Blevins, 14. As they were brought into the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office, they were no longer the tough figures they pretended to be online. They were reduced to what they truly were, children facing consequences far bigger than their entire lives. Police strategy was straightforward: divide and conquer. The two suspects were placed in separate interrogation rooms, completely isolated from one another. In the first room, Gabriel. He tried to stay calm, a cold composure he mistook for strength. He denied everything. "I don't know anything. I was home all night. Danika left on her own." The lies came smoothly, without hesitation. But investigators did not rush. They knew time was on their side. They began turning over one card at a time. First, the GPS location map. "Gabriel, if you were home, why was your phone pinging on Kimberly Road at 11 p.m.? Silence filled the room. Next, the gas station receipt. "Why did you buy a large container of gasoline on Sunday night? What was it for?" Gabriel's hardened exterior started to fracture. His eyes darted. His breathing grew shallow. Meanwhile, in the room next door, Kimahri, 14 years old, was facing a different kind of psychological pressure. An investigator leaned in and said, "Gabriel already told us everything. He says this was your idea." A classic prisoner's dilemma tactic. The fear of being betrayed collapsed Kimari's defenses. The wall came down, and the truth began to spill out. About the plan to lure Danika out that night. About the gun hidden in a closet. About the fire set deliberately to erase the evidence. But the detail that chilled investigators, and later the jury more than anything else, was not how they killed her. It was why. When asked about motive, the answers circled around things painfully small. A block button on Instagram. Petty insults traded back and forth. A perceived lack of respect by street standards. For these digital illusions, a real life was taken. They didn't kill their friend out of deep hatred. They killed because of the fragile ego of adolescence. As the jail doors closed behind Gabriel and Kimari, another door opened inside the Santa Rosa County State Attorney's Office. Prosecutors now faced a decision that would determine the fate of two teenagers forever, based on the brutality of the crime, based on the level of planning from buying gasoline to luring the victim to the scene. The state of Florida made a seismic legal move. They asked a grand jury to indict both suspects on charges of first-degree, premeditated murder, and more critically, they chose to prosecute both teenagers as adults. What does that mean if tried in juvenile court? They could have been released by age 21, their records sealed, their lives given another chance. But once transferred to adult court through a direct file, all leniency based on age disappears. They now face the harshest penalty available for murder in Florida: life in prison, without the possibility of parole, no release date, no second chances. Their lives in every practical sense, ended before they ever truly began. That decision ignited a fierce debate inside the courtroom. Defense attorneys clung to the only shield they had left: biology. They argued that, at ages 14 and 16, the frontal lobe, the part of the brain responsible for impulse control and consequence evaluation, is not yet fully developed. They painted a picture of two impulsive children, raised with inadequate supervision, and that this act, as brutal as it was the result of immaturity, not inherent evil. But prosecutors dismantled that argument with cold, undeniable evidence. They pointed to the messages, to the gun, to the gasoline can. The prosecution argued this was not a momentary outburst. This was not a shove on a school playground. They planned. They gathered the tools. They lured the victim into the woods. A child can act impulsively, but impulsivity does not include planning to burn a friend's body hours in advance. 1930, 2000. Criminal psychologists refer to this phenomenon as moral disengagement, when social media interactions numb the ability to perceive another person's pain. In the eyes of Gabriel and Kimari, that night, Danika was no longer a human being. She had become a problem to be solved, an account to be deleted from the real world. And when the boundary of humanity is erased by a phone screen, pulling the trigger becomes easier than ever before. Chitamot, 2040. While attorneys argued in dry legal language in the back row, Danika's family sat silently, holding her photograph. They didn't care about frontal lobes. They didn't care about medical definitions. They cared about the invisible but crushing void Danika left behind. When Jennifer Troy stepped forward to deliver her victim impact statement, the courtroom fell silent. There was no sobbing, only dense, unspoken pain. She said, "The only thing we want is justice, but I know no sentence, no matter how severe, can bring Danika back home to have dinner with us tonight." Finally, the moment arrived. The jury, after reviewing all the evidence, returned its verdict: guilty. Gabriel Williams and Kimari Blevins, convicted of first-degree murder. The judge looked directly into the eyes of the two teenagers and pronounced the sentence: life in prison without the possibility of parole. The gavel struck. Two young lives ended behind the walls of a state prison. The price of a moment when reckless ego overpowered humanity. The case closed on paper. But at the high school, in Pace, where they once sat, in the same classrooms, it lives on every day. One locker, still empty. No books, no pink notes, tucked inside. And at the edge of the woods, along Kimberly Road, flowers and stuffed animals are still placed there by the community. Not to mark where a crime occurred, but to remind us of a boundary terrifyingly thin between the digital world and real-world consequences. The death of Danika Jade Troy is a tragedy that should never be forgotten. It teaches us that violence in the 21st century does not always begin with fists or knives. Sometimes it starts with a phone screen, a careless message, a resentment quietly nurtured inside private group chats. And that digital hatred can ignite fires that can never be put out in the real world. Danika was frozen in time at just 14 years old. She never got the chance to grow up, to love, to chase her dreams. But her story, we hope, can save someone else out there, so that before anyone presses send on a message filled with hate, they remember Danika. And remember that behind every online account is a real human being, capable of pain. The case we examined today leaves us with far too many questions about responsibility in the digital age. I genuinely want to hear your perspective. Should juvenile offenders be held to the same standards as adults when the crime is this severe? Or has the education system failed to teach empathy before it was too late? Don't hesitate to share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to join me in bringing forgotten cases back into the light, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. That small action helps this story and its message reach far more people, because justice begins with attention. Wishing you a peaceful night. Thank you for staying with this journey in search of justice. Hold close the people around you while you still can. Goodbye, and I'll see you next time.